The most fashionable homes of the 19th century held a lethal secret hidden in plain sight. While Victorian families stood in their drawing rooms admiring the vibrant brilliance of Scheele's green wallpaper, believing they were surrounded by the height of elegance and modern taste, the very walls they praised were quietly transforming into a source of invisible danger. Behind those intricate floral patterns, something far more sinister was unfolding, a slow, silent poisoning that no one could see, smell, or immediately understand. At the heart of this story is Scheele's green, a pigment first created in the late 18th century by the chemist Carl Wilhelm Scheele. What began as a scientific curiosity quickly became a design revolution. For the first time, interiors could be bathed in a vivid, almost electric green that organic dyes simply could not achieve. It was brighter, richer, and more alive than anything people had seen before, and in an era obsessed with progress and refinement, it spread through the upper and middle classes with astonishing speed. Within decades, this once experimental pigment moved from laboratory novelty to mass production, saturating wallpaper factories and, eventually, the walls of millions of homes across Europe. But what made this color so visually captivating was also what made it dangerous. Scheele's green was not just a pigment. It was a chemical compound built from copper and arsenic, two elements that, when combined and embedded into wallpaper, created a slow-burning, toxic presence inside domestic spaces. On dry surfaces, it remained deceptively stable, locked into the decorative patterns of leaves, vines, and flowers that symbolized comfort and nature. Yet Victorian homes were rarely dry environments. Damp walls, common in poorly ventilated buildings, became the catalyst for a hidden chemical reaction. Mold would grow across the wallpaper's surface, and in doing so, it could convert traces of arsenic into arsine gas, an invisible, odorless compound that seeped into the air families breathed every day. There was no dramatic moment of exposure, no obvious warning. Instead, the poison entered the body gradually, through inhalation, or even contact with contaminated dust that settled on furniture, food, and skin. Life inside these beautifully decorated rooms became a continuous, unrecognized interaction with a toxin that accumulated slowly over time, turning ordinary domestic life into a prolonged chemical exposure. The symptoms were so vague and widespread that Victorian medicine struggled to define them. Families reported persistent fatigue, unexplained headaches, skin irritation, and a general sense of decline that doctors often dismissed as domestic malaise. As exposure continued, the effects became more severe, with hair loss, neurological issues, and eventually organ failure in the most prolonged cases. Children were especially vulnerable, not only because of their developing bodies, but because they spent more time close to walls, playing, touching, and breathing in the lowest layers of contaminated air. In many households, they were the first to show signs of illness, though no one understood why. Meanwhile, the wallpaper industry resisted the growing suspicion. Manufacturers, driven by demand and profit, dismissed early warnings and downplayed scientific concerns, even as evidence of arsenic poisoning became harder to ignore. It wasn't until public pressure intensified and high-profile figures began to take action that change slowly started to emerge. One of the most influential moments came when Queen Victoria ordered the removal of arsenic-based wallpapers from parts of Buckingham Palace, a symbolic gesture that shifted public perception almost overnight. If even the royal household considered it unsafe, the illusion of harmless luxury began to collapse. From there, legislation followed, though slowly and inconsistently. The banning of arsenic-based pigments marked the beginning of modern chemical safety awareness in consumer goods, and the phrase, arsenic-free, began to appear as one of the earliest forms of health-conscious marketing, signaling a new era where decoration was no longer allowed to ignore safety. Looking back, the story of Scheele's green is not just about a single toxic pigment, but about a deeper pattern that continues to repeat itself. The Victorian obsession with beauty and refinement came at the cost of understanding what their environments were doing to their bodies, and in many ways, that tension has never fully disappeared. Today, we live surrounded by materials we trust but rarely question, from microplastics to PFAS and other so-called forever chemicals that linger in our environment and our biology. The context has changed, but the core dilemma remains the same. How often do we choose aesthetics, convenience, or innovation without fully understanding the long-term consequences? The Victorian wallpaper did not just decorate homes, it exposed a truth that still matters now, that the things we bring into our living spaces do not stay passive, and that beauty, when separated from safety, can sometimes become something far more dangerous than we expect. What do you want to see next? Let me know in the comments, and subscribe for more videos like this.